What's up, YouTube? This is Vernacular TV. If you like the content that I'm producing, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. As we see within the United States, as it comes to the conversation that is between the different political spectrum, the Democrats and the Republicans, as we have President Joe Biden mandating the inoculation of certain group of the workforce. And we see many Republicans on the right-hand side rejecting that mandate, advocating for individual autonomy. So these political conversations is being had, whether it is in Austria, where the government is mandating inoculation for its whole population, which many people within the society are pushing back against such a mandate. So the conversation is always being had on how we address, the vaccine, how we address, freedom and liberty, how we address the conversation on how to do away with the pandemic. The politicization of the vaccine, the politicization of Big Pharma dominating the cure mechanism. Big Pharma like Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, they dominate the conversation on how to address and do away with the pandemic. And no other alternative view are accepted, because now the state and Dr. Fauci, the narrative in which they put forward is singular. It's a singular narrative. But many conversation is being had about the pandemic and COVID-19, how we address the problem, how we stop people from dying, what the right course of action, vaccine or natural immunity. All these conversations is being had. But most importantly, conversation is being had in the World Trade Organization. Over 100 nations is lobbying the World Trade Organization to have a waiver for its intellectual property. As South Africa President Ramaphosa, when he was in Senegal, Dakar, at the Security and Peace Conference, he's saying the problem with the vaccine is that many developing nations, they are hoarding the vaccine. And they are hoarding the vaccine. They are hoarding the monopolistic making of the vaccine through the intellectual property. And these countries such as South Africa and India are asking the World Trade Organization to waive the intellectual property at this current moment while the pandemic is going on, so other developing nations can be able to produce their own vaccine for a reasonable price. But the conversation is always being had. The developing nation in this capitalist system framework, the developing nation always going to want to dominate the narrative, dominate medicine, dominate the queue, because the queue come with profit. So big Western pharmaceutical industry want to monopolize the cure mechanism to the coronavirus. But as you guys saw, Africa, India, they're lobbying the World Trade Organization to relax its waiver for the intellectual property, giving other countries in places like Africa and Asia. India is a very very sophisticated country in the science, giving them an opportunity to develop their own vaccine, giving nations in Africa ability to develop their own vaccine. As Ramaphosa, South African president, said, nations in Africa like Rwanda, Nigeria, Egypt, South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, all these nations have the capacity to produce their own vaccine. This is how Africa can become developed, because all the scientists and physicists and all the professionals it would take to produce these vaccines, they are on the continent. But because of these things such as the intellectual property, dominated by Western countries. They are dominating the framework of the trading agreement. They can tell who going to make vaccine and who is not going to make vaccine. When Madagascar president said that he got some kind of tonic to cure COVID, the Western media, they bastardize him. They criticize him. They criticize him because Western countries do not want these other developing countries to catch up. So they must always be feeding it. It must be a financial aid thing. They must always be at the aid, assistance of the Western nations. But so African president, as he was saying, that Africa needs to develop. Africa needs to be given a chance. And Africa, many African countries now starting to have the industry, the developmental capacity to be able to produce these vaccine. So Africa should be given the opportunity. That's why they are lobbying the World Trade Organization to relax the intellectual property so other countries can be able to participate in the making of the vaccine. Because Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, and Pfizer, they're making record profit. Other countries want to be able to tap into the market. But as the South African president and the leadership is saying is that the Western nation, they're saying that they want to be able to ship the vaccine to these countries. All they want them to be able to do is just package it and put it onto the market. But the African leadership now want to be in charge of the means of production, of the means of producing these vaccines. So intellectual waiver is being asked to be waived at this current time, so other nations can participate in the production of vaccine for their nation. But this is big business. The World Bank reject the idea of intellectual property waiver because this is the politicization of cure. They did that with the HIV pandemic about the intellectual property and intellectual waiver, about other countries producing the drugs for AIDS. So these Western pharmaceutical industry, they have monopolized the market completely. And they don't want other developing nations to partake. They want to sponsor those nations in the healthcare and the medicine, such as the medicine for COVID. So these conversations being had, it's a positive note that President Joe Biden is somewhat receptive to the intellectual property waiver in this current time, so other nations can participate in the developmental of drugs to take care of their population. As the Omicron shut down borders once again, we should bring about inflation to the market. New drugs, new ideas need to be a part of the conversation on how we address COVID-19 and how we do away with it.